What's going on, guys? This is Sean from Southwestern Studios, and for today's video I'm going to show you how to take better photos with your Sony A6000 pop-up flash. Alright, so before we begin, there are a few things I do need to let you know about the flash system itself. So number one, if you're choosing your settings or using manual mode, you need to dial in your settings first before you pop the flash. What happens is you pop the flash first and then dial your settings. What your settings actually are and what you're going to see in the viewfinder will be two completely separate things, so that's something that you need to be aware of when getting ready to use this flash. So make sure, if you're using manual mode or any sort of mode where you have control of the settings, flash down first, you get the settings correct, then pop up the flash and get ready. So that's number one. So number two is the fact that when using the front facing flash like this, it will not work correctly with every single Sony Alpha lens. So if you have the 60-70 f4, which is what I recommend for this particular system, when you take a shot with this flash right here, you're going to see kind of a crazy shadow on your left-hand side that's going to be kind of annoying. So it doesn't matter too much when you're using the bounce features of this, but if you're taking front flash, just remember to make sure that it will work with your lens, because if not, you'll have to figure something else out. Number three, the autofocus on this system, it's not that great. Even when you're using autofocus assist, it hunts a bit and your hit rate sometimes goes as low as about to 50%. So it's not always the easiest thing for you to focus on, and we'll get to that a little bit later in one of our other scenarios. So be careful when using the A6000 and the 16-50 kit lens in low light, especially when autofocus, because it does have a harder time keeping up than if you had more available light, which is a pretty obvious thing, but it's something that needs to be mentioned. And lastly, we were filming on the Sony A7S II with the 28mm f2 full frame lens. And basically what you're seeing is I don't have any lights on top of me. We're filming just using the ambient light around here so you can see a realistic version of each scenario and each location that we're going to be at when you decide to go ahead and take your photo, just so you can see the photos that we get with what we have right here. So I don't have any external lighting except for what's around me. The only light we're going to be using is this pop-up flash right here. So without further ado, welcome to location one. And as you can see, we have some nice colorful backgrounds. Normally that would make good bokeh, a nice blurry background for us, but because we're using the kit lens, it's generally not going to be that way. We can try it out, but it's not really something that the kit lens can do reliably, or it's not really a strength of the kit lens. So keep in mind when you're shooting with this, you'll be able to get great shots, but you're not going to get that separation of background. Everything's pretty much going to be in focus, so just keep that in mind. That's one of the limitations of the kit lens, but we're still going to show you how to get great photos using only this little system right here. If I could bring my lovely girlfriend Jennifer out, she's behind the camera. Come over here and say hi. She is going to be our model for today. Okay, finish. Go back on the phone if you want. And then there's a couple other things I want to mention too. The A6000 does have a few different flash modes. Now one is the basic fill flash, and that one just is an all-purpose flash that just gives you the light. And we have a couple other modes. One is rear sync mode. And what rear sync does is it basically lets you get the subject really sharp while still allowing the background to be kind of blurry and maybe not super, have maybe that shaken or that super shaky look while the subject is pretty sharp. So I'll explain more of those modes when we take the shot. And I'm also going to let you know the settings that I'm using too as well. That way you can take photos just like this wherever you're at. Without further ado, it's time to get started. Alright, so this shot right here is going to be using just a fill flash. I'm going to get the background as best as I can, and we're just going to fill her up, and I'm going to show you just what it looks like with the front facing flash hitting her. Now the settings I have dialed in is 1/10 of a second. I'll be at f5.6 because when you're shooting at 50mm, that's where the aperture is going to be, and I'm going to be shooting at ISO 500, which gives me the best background I can get. Yeah, I think so. Alright, so this photo we're going to be using the pop-up flash. Okay, good. So pretty much what we wanted to happen, it happened. I got the background nicely exposed. We got her lit up with the fill flash. And even though there was some lighting on here, there wasn't really enough to expose her properly with the background. So we used a fill flash. It got on her and it created a pretty decent look, so I'm happy with that one. So now we're going to use rear curtain sync. Now because we have this background right here, I'm going to show you how you can get like the crazy artsy vintage blur effect while still having the subject, you know, fairly sharp. Rear curtain sync, basically what happens is the flash does not hit until the last part of the curtain or the last part of the shutter has come down. So as the last part of the shutter is coming down, then at that last piece is when the flash hits. So everything's pretty blurred out if you have a low enough shutter speed, but that last part of the flash will freeze the subject, and so you'll still see her in a pretty decent sharpness, and it looks pretty cool. So we're gonna go ahead and try that real quick too as well. All right, so pretty much the same settings I'm going to be using. Again, I'm in manual mode. I'll be at 1/10 of a second, f5.6, and ISO 500. She's just gonna walk slowly towards me. I'm gonna walk back with her, and we'll see what kind of crazy photo we can get. Ready? Alright, and walk. So this location is a pretty common one that you'll pretty much run into if you're walking around taking night portraits, especially in a city. This is a busy area right here. I'm in the little India district, and people are walking left. We got traffic on the right. There's a lot of lights around. It's pretty nice. So using this fill flash, you don't have to take professional lighting with you at home. You can just go ahead and use what you have right here and the camera that you have right here. So this particular setup right here is a good example of the best camera is the one that you have with you. So now it's time to move on to location number 2. All right guys, we are here at location number 2. As you can see, I'm in this crazy Hong Kong movie style dark alley. And chances are you probably won't find yourself shooting portraits of your girlfriend or significant other or whoever in this kind of condition right here. But because this is a tutorial to show you how to get great pictures pretty much anywhere, we're going to go ahead and take a couple over here too as well, so I can show you just how they come out. So first things first, what you see on screen should represent what I see with the human eye, which is okay, but not nearly enough for any sort of photos of people pretty much. So again, I'm not using lighting just so I can show you the actual conditions that we're shooting in. Now because I'm using the A7S II, when I actually start shooting, I'm gonna push up the exposure and you're gonna watch this place turn from night to day just like that. But then you can kind of see what I'm doing a little bit more effectively rather than just looking and seeing stuff in the dark. So for these 2 shots that I'm showing you, we're going to be using the pop-up flashes bounce feature on both of the shots. One's gonna be from the side and one's gonna be bounced straight up. I'm gonna kind of show you the effects that you can get versus just using the front fill flash. Let's get started with scenario number 2. All right, so as you can see, I placed Jen right here in the middle of this creepy, dilapidated little Hong Kong back alley. I think you can see us a lot more clearly now. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to bounce this off right here. So I'm gonna hit this wall, it's gonna bounce off the wall, and it's gonna get her right there, and it's gonna light her up beautifully. All right, so for this shot, I'm going to be using 1/25 of a second, f5.6, ISO 3200 at 50 millimeters. And pretty much what I'm gonna have to do now is I'm gonna have to manual focus her. Now the reason being is that the autofocus assist lamp in this kind of darkness just can't handle it. And a lot of times Sony A6000, even with the autofocus assist, is not gonna be able to lock on focus. It's just not strong enough. So that means I'm gonna have to manually focus it myself. Because it is focused by wire and the viewfinder, the electronic viewfinder is not that great, but we still do the best I can. All right, so I'm going to give you a quick pro tip with this camera right here. And you're gonna have to work around this a little bit. So most zoom lenses have both a zoom and focusing ring. Unfortunately, the kit lens does not. So what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to go to the subject itself. Now, before you put it on manual focus, you're gonna actually have to zoom to get to whatever millimeter you want, and then you need to switch it over to the manual focus system. And from there, it will have switched over, and then you'll be able to do your manual focusing. So what I'm gonna do right now, I'm gonna manual focus on her. I'm zoomed out to 50 millimeters. We're gonna take the shot and see if it goes. Ready? All right, let's do it. Okay, first one is the side bounce. Okay, I'm gonna get you as best as I can. Again, this is very hard with this electronic viewfinder on the Sony A6000, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, here we go, that's pretty good. All right, 1, 2, and 3. All right, so I got her nice and manual focused. It was tough, but we did it. So I'm gonna show you on the screen right now, but it actually came out pretty well. So as you can see, we just bounced it from here onto her, and we got this nice soft bounce lighting on the side of her, and the picture came out pretty good. Not only is it a good picture, but the lighting is pretty good too as well, and we did get a decent amount of the background. So I'm happy with that. So now I'm gonna take picture number 2. Now for this one, this is more of an environmental portrait, and basically what I'm going to be doing is taking the picture of this entire background right here, most likely at 16 millimeters. And I'm going to take one with the front facing flash, and I'm going to take the second one kind of just bounced up into the air and seeing if we can get some of the light from here. Even though it's bounced up, we're going to see if we can get it enough to kind of coat her just a little bit and make it a bit softer and more appealing to the eye. While she's getting herself ready, I'm going to tell you the settings I'm going to be shooting at. Again, it's in manual mode. I'm shooting at 16 millimeters. I'm at 1/25 of a second, f4, and ISO 200. Ready, 1, 2, and 3. So pretty much what I expected from this one. It did light her up, but basically she just got lit up a bit too much. We didn't have much of a background, and that front facing light just isn't that pleasing. So what we're going to do is now we're going to shoot straight up into the air, and some of the lights kind of disperse, and we're going to get a more even kind of like natural tone. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to modify my settings a little bit, and I'm going to have to crank up my ISO. I need to make sure that my light sensitivity will be enough, that way it picks up the light coming out from the flash. Since now it's not being directed forward, it's being set skyward, but there should be enough to kind of latch onto her. So we're going to take a quick picture and see how this one comes out. So again, the settings is 1/25 of a second, f4, and this time I'm at ISO 3200. All right, now we're bouncing the light up. 1, 2, and 3. All right, so this is pretty much what I thought. Now we have a more balanced image. The flash is just not directly on her, lighting her up bad. What's happening is we were able to get the entire background and to make it look pretty good, and to show her being a part of this crazy dark alleyway without, again, her being overly exposed. So I'm pretty happy with that one. So one thing I'm going to do real quick to show you guys too is just take a quick photo without any sort of a flash, so you can see the conditions that we're in right now. So this next photo is going to be 0 flash whatsoever. All right, ready? Okay, here we go. 1, 2, and 3. So with the flash that I've done just now, we've lifted the subject and this part of the foreground up just enough while maintaining the integrity of the background, and it actually looks pretty pleasing. Now without the flash, it's a different story. We can see the background pretty good, but then she's in too much darkness and there's not really much to the photos. All right guys, so now we're pretty much finished up with location number 2. Again, this cool Hong Kong action movie, dark alley. It's not a place that you would normally go shooting, but if you found yourself over here, and if you found yourself over here with the A6000 and the pop-up flash, it's something you can totally do. Also, one thing to keep in mind too as well, and I'm trying to give you kind of like notes for each location that are applicable to them. This is possible pretty much only with the Sony A6000 due to the fact that you can move around this pop-up flash a lot. So if you have a Canon or a Nikon camera and you have a pop-up flash that stays pretty rigid, you're gonna have to figure something else out to be able to do that bounce too as well. Like you might be able to hold your hand on that and bounce it out. It's gonna be a bit more cumbersome. With this camera right here, it's just real easy and real simple. Hold the camera, turn it to the side. You can use your thumb. You can use your thumb right here, push it up, get ready for the bounce, and then you put your index finger on the shutter and bam, there you go. If you feel like it, you can even one-hand it too as well if you want to be cool, boom. Same thing with flashing it up. You just pull it back a little bit to make sure it's up. I don't know if you can see it. Just pull it back to make sure the light comes straight up, and then boom, you take the shot. It's real simple, real easy, and again, one of the great things about this camera is that it's real cheap. So enough about this Hong Kong back alley. It's time to move over to location number 3. All right guys, so now we are here at location number 3. So as you can see, it's basically a tunnel with good lighting. So generally you would say, well, I don't really need to use a flash in here, but I'm going to show you that you can get even better results using the pop-up flash rather than just using the ambient light itself. So Jen, if you want to come over here for a second again. All right, so she's been a trooper this whole time. So basically what I'm going to have her do is she's going to kind of stand back there a few feet. I'm going to take just one photo of her by herself without the flash, and then I'm going to take the second photo of her with the flash, with the difference being that now I'm going to bounce it up off the ceiling down onto her and give her a nice like falling light on top of her. So again, both exposures should be okay, but the second one should be even better. For the settings on this one, I'm going to be using 1/80th of a second, f3.5 and ISO 640. Again, first shot without flash, second shot with flash. Ready, 1, 2, 3. All right, so first one's finished. I'm actually going to do 2 more. One's going to be with the front facing flash, and then we're going to bounce the flash up off the ceiling onto her, so we can see what results we get from that. All right, this one's front facing flash, okay? Here we go, ready, 1, 2, 3. All right, photo number 2 is finished. Now we're doing photo number 3. This is going to be the bounce. All right, 1, 2, and 3. So I took these 3 photos, and pretty much I was able to get good results from each photo. The first photo, we didn't use the flash, so the lighting wasn't perfect, but it was still okay. The second photo, it was actually a front-facing flash, but because we have all this ambient light around, the lack of shadows don't matter so much anymore. So it's a lot more pleasing to look at than as if we were shooting outside at night. Big difference. And then again, the most pleasing light though was the bounce light. We bounced it up here off the ceiling and then back onto her, and the light's just kind of like falling on her in a nice soft pattern. All right, so with that being said, we've seen 3 different locations and actually a few more different scenarios on how you can take good photos with just this little pop-up flash. You can take nice creative ones, you can take little artsy ones, you can take very standard ones. Really, it's just pretty much your own creative instinct, as long as you get to know this camera and what this flash can do. So for the last location, I'm going to take you out back past this tunnel, and we're going to have a nice background, but the foreground is going to be kind of dark. And I'm going to show you all the different kind of modes that you can use for your flash, so you can choose one, or you can go full manual. It's your choice. All right, so now we're finished over here. It's time for the last one. All right, guys, so we are at our 4th and final location. And pretty much what I've done from now is I've just given you the settings that I've used, but I haven't really kind of gone through the actual different modes that you can use for the flash. So for this last scenario, I'm just going to show you the different modes that you can use and the results that each mode will give you, because you can use the flash in pretty much anything you want to do. You can use the flash in the green mode, in the gold mode, in P mode, in S mode. Any mode you want, the flash can be used, but I'm going to show you now the modes that you use, what results you're going to get. Now, of course, this is all based off of your standard basic metering mode, so nothing too fancy. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have Jen come over here. We're going to get the camera set up, and I'm going to show you each individual mode and what it does. All right, so the first mode that we're going to be using is the automatic mode. It's the green one on the dial. I'm going to set it to 50 millimeters, pop the flash, and we're going to take the shot. All right, ready? Okay, what we got from the green mode was the background is a bit underexposed and she's a bit overexposed, so there's a lot of separation between light. So overall, the green mode works okay, but you can do better. So now we're going to move to the gold mode, which is supposed to be like the intelligent auto plus. So we're going to try this one. Same thing, ready? And 3. All right, so for the intelligent auto plus mode, it's basically the same as the green. Background, low, subject, a little bit overexposed. So now we're getting out of that, we're going to go into the P mode, the program mode. And in this case, we are just setting the ISO to auto and letting it handle that. So I'm getting from P mode basically almost the same thing as the green and the gold mode. Now I'm going to move on to aperture priority mode. And obviously, since we're at 50 millimeters, the aperture is going to be at 5.6, and there's not a whole lot that we can do about it. go. Ready? 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so for aperture priority mode, basically what we have is both the background and the subject severely underexposed. That's not really going to work. So now we're going to switch to shutter priority mode and we're going to try it like that. Now this time I'm going to put the shutter speed up to about, we'll say 30 to mitigate any handshaking issues. Now this lens does have stabilization, but for many cameras you'll find yourself shooting at night like at around 30 just to make sure things are decently sharp. So we're going to use that kind of basic thing from there. So same thing goes. Here we go. 1, 2, and 3. Alright, shutter priority mode, basically the same thing. Background underexposed, subject underexposed. I'm actually going to drop the shutter speed to 1/10 of a second now, just to see if there's any change. So let's do this real quick. Here we go, 1/10 of a second. Here we go, 1, 2, and 3. At 1/10 of a second, it's just barely better than it was at 1/30 of a second. So again, if you're using these modes, your results are going to vary. The only way to know for sure what you're going to get, or to be able to predict what you're going to get, is to go ahead and use the mode that we're going to use last, and that is manual mode. So you're going to switch it to M. Again, you're going to close this right here. Now what you're going to do is take your ISO off of auto, and you're going to expose for the background. So I'm going to 1/20th of a second. I know I'm going to be at 5.6 because I'm shooting at 50 millimeters. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to adjust my ISO until I get the background the way I want. So at 3200, it's looking pretty good. So I'm going to take one photo without the flash. Then we're going to pop the flash, take the photo, and just adjust it from there. All right, here we go. Ready? And one quick thing to note too, now that I'm shooting in manual mode, I'm starting off with my flash compensation at 0. If I have to lower it, I'll lower it. If I have to make it higher, I'll make it higher. Just to be a couple of shots. Okay, here we go. So now that I've shot in manual mode, I've dialed in my ISO, my shutter speed, and my aperture. I've gotten everything I needed to do. I took the shot and it came out pretty good. The background is nice and exposed. She's also exposed slightly more than the background, just enough to stand her out, but not enough to make it too much of an imbalance. So I'm really happy with the shot we got right there. Now I have one last mode I'm going to show you, and this one is special to the A6000. So what you're going to do is you're going to flip the dial over to SCN, which stands for scene mode. Then you're going to go into your main function option menu and go down into shoot mode, and from there you're just going to go to where it says night portrait. So basically the night portrait mode tells the camera that it's going to be dark and it wants a portrait. So the camera is going to be set up to take the kind of portrait it wants. So it's going to drop the shutter speed and pop the flash accordingly, but instead of us dialing it in, this time it's going to all be done automatically in camera. So let's see how we can do. Alright, so now that I've used the night portrait mode, what it did for me is it kind of overexposed things a little bit too much, but that's okay because it still gave us a pretty good night shot. So overall with this camera, I would still be pretty happy with the results that I got with that one. But keep in mind, using manual mode, you can dial in the results yourself and you can predict exactly what kind of shot you're going to get. And again, there's a whole lot more you can do with it too as well, because you have full control. So I'm going to do one last thing before we finish this guide up, and I'm going to show you that we can do sharp jump shots at night. Alright guys, so that's pretty much about it. I just want to recap real quick. With the Sony A6000, it's a small 16-50 kit lens and the pop-up flash, you can get great shots no matter where you're at, no matter what time of day it is, no matter what time of night it is, you'll be able to get great shots. We were able to get a nice jump shot right here. We were able to get a nice bounce off the tunnel. We were able to take nice portraits in the dead of darkness inside one of those crazy Hong Kong dark back alleys. And we were able to get some pretty decent artsy vintage shots and just standard little portrait shots and normal backgrounds that you'll find when you're out and about exploring around town. The A6000 is still a very capable camera. Even with the kit lens, and especially with this little pop-up flash, you can get great results no matter where you go. So So just go out there, start shooting, start experimenting, and then when you're ready for it, you pop that flash up, you dial in your settings, and you can go get great results no matter where you're at. This has been Sean from Southwestern Studios. I also thank my lovely girlfriend Jennifer for putting up with all this because it's been a long night. We will talk to you guys for the next video. Until then, take care.